It's strange, isn't it? How life has this way of whispering right before something changes. Like the air feels different, heavier, quieter. You can't explain it, but deep down, you know something's coming. You scroll, you laugh. You pretend it's just another night. But something inside you won't sit still. It's almost like the universe is leaning in, trying to tell you something before the clock resets. Maybe it's not coincidence you're here right now, hearing this. Maybe there's a message meant only for you. Before tomorrow wakes up and everything you know shifts just a little. Moments before change. Silence speaks the loudest. You ever notice how everything goes quiet before something big happens? Not just around you, inside you. The noise fades, the chaos slows down, and suddenly the world feels still. You think it's peace, but it's not. It's pressure building under calm skin. It's the universe holding its breath before it flips everything upside down. That silence isn't comfort. It's a warning. It's the pause before the storm. The moment before the truth walks in uninvited. You can feel it, can't you? That unease that crawls under your ribs when life gets too quiet. It's not paranoia. It's recognition. Your soul knows something your mind hasn't caught up to yet. People mistake silence for safety. They think calm means everything's fine. But the truth is, real change never announces itself with noise. It slips in quietly, disguised as nothing. You won't hear it coming, but you'll feel it. That sudden distance between you and the people you thought you'd never lose. That heavy air that hangs in the room when something's about to end. That strange pull in your chest when you know life's about to test you again. That's silence speaking. It's not asking you to panic. It's asking you to pay attention. Silence has a way of exposing what noise hides. When the distractions stop, the truth gets louder. You start hearing your thoughts, your doubts, your guilt, all the things you've been burying under conversation, music, scrolling, laughter. You start realizing how much of your peace was just avoidance. And that's the moment change starts creeping in. Because you can't fix what you refuse to face. The silence corners you, forces you to look at what's really there. The cracks in your relationships, the emptiness in your routines, the lies you tell yourself to stay comfortable. It's brutal, that honesty. But it's necessary. The moments before change are strange. Everything feels familiar yet off. You wake up and something in the air feels heavier. People talk, but their words don't land the same. The things that used to excite you now feel dull. You start sensing the gap between who you are and who you're supposed to become. That's not depression. That's awakening. That's your old life falling apart quietly, piece by piece, before your new one begins. The silence isn't empty. It's full of endings you don't understand yet. You might try to run from it. Fill the quiet with sound. Fill the stillness with motion. But that doesn't stop what's coming. Change doesn't care if you're ready. It comes when you've ignored the signs too long. It comes when the noise you used to drown in stops working. And it doesn't ask permission. It takes what's no longer needed. people, habits, illusions, and leaves you standing there, wondering why everything suddenly feels different. But deep down, you already knew. You just didn't want to admit it. There's always that moment right before life shifts where everything seems almost too calm. That's when most people make mistakes. They mistake the quiet for peace, not realizing it's the silence before impact. You think nothing's happening, but everything is. The pieces are moving behind the curtain, the universe rearranging what no longer fits. You feel restless, anxious, disconnected. Like something's ending, but you can't name what. That's not confusion. That's clarity approaching, and it always arrives disguised as discomfort. You start to hear whispers in your thoughts. Not voices, but feelings. That little nudge that says, "This isn't right anymore." The growing discomfort in situations that once felt safe. The exhaustion that comes from pretending you're fine. You try to fight it, to push through, but the silence doesn't let go. It lingers, pressing against you until you listen, because silence doesn't yell. It doesn't beg. It just waits, patiently, for you to realize that something's about to change, whether you like it or not. The moments before change are sacred. You don't notice it while you're in them, but they hold power. Every ending begins with stillness. Every transformation starts with a pause. That's where you're tested. In the quiet, not the chaos. Because when the noise is gone, you're left with the truth. No distractions, no excuses, just you and the reflection of who you've become. And in that silence, you realize what needs to stay and what needs to go. That realization isn't soft, it's sharp, it cuts deep. But that's how growth sounds before it begins. Not loud, not dramatic, but deadly quiet. You'll look back one day and recognize it. That night when you couldn't sleep for no reason. That day when you felt everything slowing down. That moment when the laughter around you suddenly felt hollow. You'll realize that was the shift beginning. The silence before the storm that changed everything. And maybe now, you'll stop running from it, because silence isn't emptiness. It's transition. It's the sound of your old self fading and your new one preparing to wake up. And if you listen closely enough, you can almost hear it. The whisper before the world rearranges itself around you. What feels random is rarely accidental. You think things just happen, don't you? A coincidence here, a strange encounter there, a message you didn't mean to see, a feeling you can't explain. You call it luck, fate, bad timing, whatever helps you sleep at night. But deep down, you know better. The truth is nothing is random. Everything's connected, every thread, every moment, every pain. Life doesn't throw dice, it draws patterns. You just don't notice them until they've already wrapped around you. You ever wonder why certain people cross your path right when you need them? Or why something you thought was meaningless suddenly feels heavy with meaning later? It's because nothing in this world happens by accident. The things that break you, the people who hurt you, the chances you missed, they all fit somewhere in a design bigger than your understanding. You think it's chaos, but it's choreography. The problem is, you're too close to see the pattern. You're standing in the middle of the painting, trying to understand the whole picture. The moments that seem the most random are usually the most deliberate. That stranger you met who said exactly what you needed to hear. That delay that made you miss something that would have gone wrong. That heartbreak that forced you to find yourself. It's all a setup. The universe isn't cruel, it's clever. It gives you what you need, not what you want. And sometimes what you need looks like disaster until it reveals itself as direction. You call it pain. Life calls it correction. Most people move through life half asleep. They don't pay attention. They shrug things off as coincidence. They ignore the signs because signs don't come wrapped in comfort. They come wrapped in confusion. You think it's random that you saw that post, that you heard those words, that you ended up here, right now, listening to something that feels too personal to be chance. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's exactly where you were meant to be, because something, or someone, wanted your attention. The universe has this twisted sense of timing. It doesn't rush, doesn't explain. It just waits for you to be ready. Ready to see what it's been showing you all along. But most people aren't ready. They cling to control, to predictability, to patterns that make them feel safe. They want meaning, but not mystery. They want answers, but not truth. And so, when something unexpected happens, they panic. They call it bad luck. But there's no such thing. It's just life rearranging things to put you where you actually belong. You'll start noticing it when you slow down. The way everything lines up when you stop forcing it. The way certain rejections turn out to be protection. The way something you lost leads you straight to something better. You start realizing that what felt random was actually precise. Every delay, every detour, every heartbreak, calculated. You were never late, you were being positioned, but you couldn't see it because your vision was clouded by expectation. You thought it was supposed to go your way. You thought you were in control, but you were never driving. You were just along for the lesson. It's funny how we only connect the dots looking back. When we're in the moment, everything feels unfair, meaningless, out of order. We curse the timing, we question the reason, we demand explanations. But later, when the dust settles, it makes sense. You realize if that one thing hadn't gone wrong, nothing else would have gone right. If that door hadn't closed, you wouldn't have walked through the right one. You start to see that the pieces that once looked random were actually building something precise. You just didn't recognize the blueprint. But here's the trick. You can't see the pattern if you keep doubting it. You can't call everything meaningless and expect meaning to reveal itself. Life doesn't prove itself to skeptics. It reveals itself to listeners. The ones who pay attention. The ones who look beyond the surface. The ones who trust that maybe there's more happening than what they can see. Because when you start seeing everything as connected, the world starts talking back. You notice timing. You notice alignment. You stop calling things weird and start calling them right. Maybe the thing you think you stumbled upon tonight. This moment, this message, wasn't random either. Maybe it was sent, not found. Maybe life has been trying to get through you for a while now, and this was the only way you'd listen. Because sometimes, to get your attention, life doesn't shout. It whispers through coincidence. It plants clues in your path, waiting for you to connect them. And when you finally do, when you finally stop saying, "That's strange," and start saying, "That's meant," everything changes. What feels random is rarely accidental. It's alignment disguised as accident. It's purpose wearing the mask of chaos. And maybe, just maybe, all those moments you thought were meaningless, the missed calls, the strange dreams, the unexpected endings, were part of a story you were always meant to live. You just needed to reach this point to start seeing it. Because once you see the pattern, you can't unsee it. And once you realize nothing's random, you stop fearing what's next. You start listening for it. You're being prepared for something you can't see yet. That's the thing about growth. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up with fireworks or clear instructions. It's colder. It sneaks in through frustration, through silence, through moments that make you question everything. You think life is breaking you, but really it's shaping you. Every delay, every disappointment, every sleepless night, it's part of the process. You're being molded in the dark, tested in private, stretched in ways that don't make sense until the reason finally reveals itself. You keep asking for purpose, but you don't realize that purpose doesn't come gift. Wrapped, it comes disguised as pressure. You want to be strong, but you don't want the weight that builds strength. You want clarity, but not confusion. You want blessings, but not the process that makes you ready to receive them. Life doesn't work like that. Before you get what you want, you're prepared for it. And that preparation doesn't feel like progress. It feels like chaos. It feels like loss. It feels like silence. You're not stuck. You're being trained. The things you call problems are the lessons you begged for in your prayers. You asked for peace, and life sent you people who disturb it so you could learn boundaries. You asked for confidence, and life gave you rejection so you'd learn to validate yourself. You asked for strength, and life handed you pain so you'd finally build some. You thought the process would be gentle, but transformation never is. It tears you apart before it puts you together again. You keep looking for signs of progress. But preparation doesn't always look like movement. Sometimes it's standing still when everything in you wants to run. Sometimes it's waiting when you don't know what you're waiting for. Sometimes it's losing people you thought you couldn't live without. You think it's punishment, but it's pruning. The unnecessary parts of your life have to fall away before the real you can breathe. Because you can't carry old versions of yourself into new chapters. They don't fit there. The hardest part is not knowing what's coming next. You feel it, that pull, that tension, that quiet sense that something's about to shift. But nothing's happening yet. That's where the real test is. Not in the chaos, but in the calm before it. That's when most people give up, because they mistake silence for absence. They think life forgot about them. But silence doesn't mean forgotten. It means you're in the making. The universe doesn't rush perfection. It builds it piece by piece, unseen, until the moment it's ready. You're being stripped of things that no longer align with where you're headed. The people, the habits, the comfort zones, all of it has an expiration date. And when it's time, life removes them whether you're ready or not. It feels cruel, but it's necessary. Because if you knew what was coming, you'd cling to what's leaving. You'd never let go. You'd sabotage your own future, trying to protect your past. That's why you're not allowed to see it yet. You're meant to trust the process, not control it. You'll notice patterns. The same situations repeating in different forms. The same emotions resurfacing, no matter how far you run. That's not coincidence. That's life, trying to make sure you learn the lesson before the next stage begins. Because you can't move forward carrying the same wounds, the same fears, the same blindness. You think you're waiting for an opportunity, but the truth is, the opportunity is waiting for you to evolve. You're being built for it in silence, forged by discomfort, refined by what feels unfair. You won't always feel strong while you're being prepared. Most days, you'll feel lost. You'll feel like you're going backward, like nothing makes sense. But that's how growth feels in real time. Confusing, painful, slow. It's only afterward that you look back and see the pattern, the precision. You realize the heartbreak taught you discernment. The silence taught you patience. The failure taught you resilience. You see that every piece had purpose, even the ones that hurt the most. You're not behind. You're not forgotten. You're not cursed. You're in training. The kind of training that breaks the version of you that can't handle what's coming. You're being built for the next level. Not comfort, not applause, but purpose. The kind of purpose that requires depth. That's why it's lonely. That's why it's heavy. That's why it doesn't make sense. Because preparation always happens in private. You don't see the roots growing under the soil. You just see the flower when it's ready. So when life feels uncertain, when you can't see where it's leading, remember, you're not supposed to yet. The unknown isn't there to scare you. It's there to strengthen you. You're being prepared quietly through everything that confuses you for something you'd ruin if you got too soon. And when it finally arrives, you'll understand why the waiting had to hurt, why the lessons had to sting, why the silence had to stretch so long. Because the only way to recognize a blessing when it comes is to survive the preparation that shaped you for it. The signs you ignore tonight will become lessons tomorrow. Funny how people always think they can outrun the truth. They see the warning, they feel the unease. They hear that quiet whisper in the back of their mind. And still, they pretend everything's fine. Because facing it means admitting something's wrong. And no one wants to do that. No one wants to believe the pain is a message, the silence is a signal, the timing is a teacher. So they look away, laugh it off, and call it coincidence. Until life stops whispering and starts screaming. You ever notice how every mistake starts with a feeling you ignored? That gut twist, that hesitation, that small voice saying, "Don't do it." You buried it under noise. You convinced yourself it was paranoia. You wanted to believe what was easier, not what was true. So you moved forward, pretending not to see the cracks forming. And when it all fell apart, you said you didn't see it coming. But you did. You just didn't listen. The truth was there the whole time, waiting to be acknowledged. Life doesn't punish you out of cruelty. It corrects you through consequence. When you ignore the small signs, it sends bigger ones. When you dismiss the small discomforts, it brings chaos. It's not being unfair. It's trying to wake you up. You can't keep walking past the same red flags and expect a different ending. Every warning ignored becomes a wound later. Every delay avoided turns into disaster. Every lesson skipped repeats itself in louder, uglier ways. You call it bad luck, but it's not. It's repetition. The universe keeps setting the same test until you pass it. The same type of person, the same type of pain, the same type of ending. Because you didn't listen the first time. You keep wondering why life feels like déjà vu. It's because you're walking in circles, mistaking motion for progress. You're not cursed, you're stubborn. You want growth without change, wisdom without loss, peace without accountability. It doesn't work like that. The lessons keep coming until they're learned. You feel it, though. That tension inside when something doesn't sit right. That strange energy when you're about to make a choice you already know you'll regret. You think it's anxiety, but sometimes it's clarity disguised as discomfort. Your soul knows before your mind catches up, but your ego hates silence, so it talks over it. It convinces you to stay where you're breaking because leaving looks uncertain. It tells you to trust what's familiar instead of what's right. And then, when everything collapses, it blames the world for being cruel. The signs are always there, in words that don't match actions, in people who keep showing you who they are, but you keep rewriting the story, in nights you can't sleep because something deep inside you knows you're lying to yourself. That's the thing. Truth doesn't disappear just because you ignore it. It waits. It waits in the corners of your mind, in your dreams, in your reflection, when you can't pretend anymore. And when you're finally forced to face it, it doesn't come gently. It hits hard. It burns everything false to the ground. You ever notice how hindsight feels like clarity, but also shame? You look back and say, I should have known. You did know. You just didn't want to. That's what hurts the most. Realizing that the pain could have been avoided if you had just trusted what you felt the first time. But that's how life works. It lets you fall so you finally understand why you should have listened before you lipped. Pain is a brutal teacher, but it gets your attention like nothing else. Sometimes the sign isn't dramatic. Sometimes it's just quiet discontent. the conversation that doesn't sit right, the opportunity that feels forced, the situation that drains you instead of growing you. You tell yourself it's temporary, that it'll get better, that maybe you're overthinking. But deep down, you know. You always know. You just want proof before you act. You want the pain to justify the choice, not realizing the sign was the mercy before the pain came. You keep saying, I wish I had known sooner. But knowing wasn't the problem. Trusting was. You wanted comfort, not correction. You wanted signs that confirmed what you wanted to believe, not what you needed to accept. So life stopped sending whispers and started sending storms. Because sometimes the only way to make you move is to make staying unbearable. That's not punishment. That's alignment. You weren't meant to live numb. You were meant to wake up. It's strange how people only listen when the lesson costs them something. They only change when the pain becomes too heavy to carry. They only understand when the signs have turned into scars. But that's how it goes. That's how awareness is born. Through damage, through reflection, through finally realizing that every ignored sign was a chance to avoid exactly this moment. The signs were never hidden. They were just inconvenient. So tonight, when that feeling creeps in, that unease, that whisper, that instinct, don't silence it. Don't call it fear when it might be truth. Because the message that feels uncomfortable now will become the memory that haunts you later. The same sign you brushed off will become the story you tell yourself when it's too late. And maybe, just maybe, what's trying to reach you tonight isn't a warning at all. It's mercy, dressed as discomfort, begging you to listen before life forces you to learn. Restlessness is often the soul's way of warning you. That ache inside, that heaviness that comes and goes without reason. It's not boredom. It's not exhaustion. It's something deeper trying to speak. You call it anxiety. You call it overthinking. But what if it's not? What if it's your soul tugging at your sleeve, whispering, you're not where you're supposed to be. You distract yourself with noise, with screens, with people who make you forget for a moment. But when it's quiet, there it is again. That hollow feeling that something's missing. That's not madness. That's misalignment. You think your soul doesn't notice when you're pretending. It does. Every time you say yes when you mean no. Every time you settle when you should have walked away. Every time you trade truth for comfort. It feels it. That's where restlessness comes from. It's the internal rebellion of the part of you that still remembers what peace feels like. The soul can't scream, so it shakes you. It makes you uneasy. It steals your sleep. It fogs your mind. It makes you question everything you thought was fine. Not to punish you, to wake you up. People think peace comes from having everything figured out, but real peace is alignment. It's when your life matches your truth. And when it doesn't, your body knows. Your energy knows. You start feeling heavy in rooms you used to love. Conversations that once excited you now drain you. People who used to make you laugh now leave you empty. That's not depression. That's awareness. That's your spirit whispering, You've outgrown this. But instead of listening, you call it a phase. You try to fix the feeling instead of changing the situation. You scroll through distractions,